Hey everyone, it's Fred Faulkner. It is a Friday with Fred, and I am here to have a special edition as I try and do every year as I go into Adobe Summit. I'm really excited to talk about my thoughts on what I expect to see, why I'm excited about the show, going back to Las Vegas, and maybe talk about a few predictions and maybe some surprises. So let's jump in and get started. Yep, it is time to talk about Adobe Summit, and it is just a few days away. I head out to Vegas starting on Sunday morning with booth setup and a bunch of other things happening on Monday, the partner day, and then jumping straight into the conference with the general sessions on Tuesday morning. If you guys don't know who I am, I'm Fred Faulkner. I am the vice president of strategic marketing at a company called Bounteous, an end-to-end digital transformation company. According to Fred, is my personal brand, and try to talk about content around marketing, technology, and growth in the intersection there, which leads really well into what Adobe does with their whole entire Creative Cloud, Document Cloud, and Experience Cloud. I've been in the Adobe ecosystem for probably 10 years. In fact, this is my 10th Adobe Summit, my 8th in person. Thanks, COVID. But really excited to head back to Vegas and be part of a larger community, which really jumps into one of the biggest reasons why I'm excited about Adobe Summit. And it starts with just being back in person. The Adobe community is big, it's huge, it's large. I've been in this community for 10 years, everything from being a business practitioner to implementing Adobe solutions at previous companies. I've met a ton of people over the years. Colleagues are now at different places, and I like it to see them really at one place every year, and that's Adobe Summit. So really excited to be back there to connect with old colleagues, meet new people, just be part of this amazing community of creatives and marketers. It is one of the biggest marketing conferences of the year, and you really don't get to experience Adobe unless you're there in person. So really excited about being back in Vegas. I mean, I might be able to live without Vegas, but seriously though, being part of this community is super important, super big, and I get a lot of joy out of it. Talking to people, talking to customers that have problems, clients, future clients having challenges around their Adobe stack, and how we can actually out there and solve them. We all have the same challenges. Marketers continue to have challenges every day, whether it be things around content creation, delivery, analytics, understanding who our customers are, delivering on the value proposition that we want to deliver on. And Adobe, this conference, along with other conferences that are out there, really help deliver on that value proposition. So in person is probably one of the best ways to get that information, networking with peers, being out there, talking to vendors, making sure you're actually getting your questions answered. My really big advice is don't be a fly in the wall. Talk to people as much as you can. It's easy just to go to sessions and then kind of just hang out on the side, especially if you're there alone or only with a few people. Take every exact moment, every moment you have with yourself at the conference, and just try to find value by connecting with people, talking to people, getting information from sessions. Just don't go and just be a fly, be there, be engaged, and provide value and find value from the vendors and people that are there. That is really one of the biggest things that I'm really excited about doing, is just that connection. Now, Adobe doesn't start anything without having big bangs and big talks about things. And I think that one of the biggest things we're continuing to see here in the world is around the idea of what marketers' biggest problems are. The last 5, 6, 7 years, we've been talking about things like digital foundation, just things about websites and mobile and content with analytics and targeting and basic personalization. If you think about the Adobe ecosystem, that really includes AEM, target, and analytics. The last few years, Adobe's really been advancing that agenda into what I think is really more marketers' maturity, and how the goalposts are moving on what marketers and really what customers are expecting from the companies they engage with. And that's why last year you started to see this real big push into things like content supply. And I think this is one of the things we're going to see this year, is really around content supply chain again. So I say content supply chain is going to be off the chain. I have high expectations that we're going to hear a lot about content supply chain in the general session, and product improvements that go with this as well. I think Adobe is one of the few companies that actually is well positioned to talk about content supply chain, because it is one of the few companies and few MarTech companies that can talk about content from an end-to-end scenario, right? They have Creative Cloud that allows any content creator to create things with Photoshop and InDesign and Premiere, from text to video to images, the whole 9 yards, and even the generative AI things with Firefly baked into those solutions today. Document Cloud from the business perspective. They just announced an AI co-pilot to be able to understand and read their PDFs and documents more fully. And then delivering and monetizing and understanding the consumption and production of that content and publicizing and marketing it through the Experience Cloud. There really is not another vendor out there that can take you from ideation to creation to publishing to marketing to understanding and then recycling that into personalization and understanding and learning from it and optimizing. So I do think content supply chain is one of the biggest challenges marketers have today. Adobe's well positioned to answer that question and answer that problem with their solutions. So I think you're going to see this content supply chain topic really leaned into here at Adobe Summit, which is going to be really exciting. It isn't just about taking like workflow in place. That's what's kind of content supply chain has been talked about mostly today. I think it's going to be more AI ingestion, infusion. It's going to be more about that workflow, but it's also going to be about how their tools can continue to advance and give marketers that advantage and be able to take something from ideation to completion and production as fast as possible. I think one of the things that's really important to think about, though, is when you think about your content supply chain and what your challenges you have, is that content supply chain doesn't mean you have to have every Adobe solution. You don't need Workfront to do content supply chain. It might make it easier if you're using Adobe solutions, but it's not the only thing you need to have. So really, content supply chain as a topic is big and broad. It doesn't have to be just Adobe solutions, but I think you can learn a lot from Adobe and what they're implementing to help solve your content supply chain problems, even if you use a few of their solutions and not all of them. So I think content supply chain will be a big topic you're going to see in general sessions. I think it's going to be a topic that's going to be exciting for a lot of vendors to talk about because it is something that every marketer is challenged with. And it's an important thing because in order to get to personalization at scale, getting actual personalization with insights and engagement. So PI, as they're referring to it as, content is a key component to that. And so personalization at scale doesn't work without content. Content doesn't work without content supply and that whole life cycle and chain that goes with it. So PI and content supply chain, two key things you're going to see at Adobe Summit, two key things you're going to be hearing more about. And I would be shocked if we don't hear it ad nauseum there, in addition to things like AI and what they can continue to advance with that. Which leads to what I do expect more things to talk about, and that is going to be AI and Gen AI, and how does it continue to advance inside the Adobe arena? Last year we heard about Firefly. Shortly thereafter, Adobe Summit, Firefly beta was put out. We're now in version 2. It's image creation. It does some amazing things. If you haven't messed around with it, it's exciting to see what it can bring ideas to life. But where I think Adobe is lacking in some cases is the text generation. Now, the other AI tools that they have, Adobe Sensei, is really leaning into things like automatic tagging and some things inside the Experience Cloud. I think Firefly with image tagging and stuff with personalization of functionality inside Sensei, some of the new Gen AI reading functionality in Document Cloud. But there's still this missing component around text generation. If you think about the traditional Chat GPT, it's only been out for 18 months or less. But when we think about text generation, the ability for companies to get that marketing copy personalized faster in more real time based on segments and personas and other aspects inside the Adobe ecosystem. I do think AI is going to continue to be the narrative. Adobe's been missing out a little bit on this with some other the companies that are out there talking about their integrations. Salesforce has a ChatGPT function to learn, to utilize inside the Einstein ecosystem of the Salesforce clouds. Everyone, you have IBM and their Watson X. There's all these other big platforms that they're really doing more with this idea of AI. We'd be shocked and surprised if we don't hear some big narrative around where AI is beyond Sensei or Sensei gets put on steroids. Where you're going to see the next area of this, I think, is still going to be around text generation, as in addition to continue to advance the Firefly platform. Especially with being one of the few platforms that is trained on its own content, which makes it about as safe as it possibly can be compared to some of the other tools that are out there. But for sure, you're going to see things around AI. You're going to see things around content supply chain. I think you can't get away from AI at Adobe Summit. And I actually welcome it because I do think, again, in thinking about the biggest challenges that marketers face today, not having to have all the data scientists, there to help you understand your data and analytics. And I can probably see a lot of new features and functionality coming out of Adobe Analytics and customer journey analytics that goes with that. I think there's gonna be a lot of infusion of AI as a big topic instead of just the Gen AI component. But I would love to see a chat GPT functionality kind of ingested into the Adobe Experience Cloud that can ask me like, what's my next best segment that I should be targeting, and have it go in and do the analysis of customer journeys and do the analysis inside Adobe Analytics, and then come back with a new micro segment that you didn't think about, or how it can you can ask it to give me some of the data around some of my commerce transactions and where my revenue is coming from. These are the text to generation of content and analysis back. I think is one of those key things missing from their ecosystem that a lot of their competitors are starting to at least talk about and implement. So for me, Gen AI in a number of ways is going to be a key topic that you're going to start to see here at Adobe Summit. And I'm excited for that because I do think they are a little behind the curve on this, and is something that they certainly need to address, and no better place than Adobe Summit. Let's think, what else are we talking about? I would say if I'm going to look at the whole ecosystem of the Adobe world, what's one of the next topics that are really talked about in the world? And that comes down to things like composability and headless. Um, the world of monoliths, as you can read from analysts like Forrester and Gartner and others, the monolith ecosystem is becoming more and more challenging. When you're baked into these big systems that are harder to rip out or harder to add into, how are they going to address some of that? And there's a lot of narrative around whether it's composability or composable in headless solutions and hybrid solutions. Now, Adobe's been addressing this over the years, right? They've been a monolith solution for a while, but they have been thinking about addressing, from a hybrid perspective. And AEM continues to evolve in that space. Franklin was one of those ways they addressed it last year. How they're moving now into this headless environment with the edge delivery services. I think companies are going to continue to find ways that they can use a monolith solution or some aspects of monolith solutions that are still inside the Adobe Experience Cloud ecosystem, and then drive into things that are more composable at the same time. This is not just an Adobe trend. I think this is an overall trend when it comes to companies and their marketing technology stacks. I don't think anyone can go fully composable. I also don't think anyone can really stay at fully monolith. And at the end of the day, I think the reality is that there's always going to be some combination of a hybrid of both. And that's okay. And in fact, I would encourage most companies to think about that, because I think there are still best of breed monolith best of breed solutions inside monoliths. And there's still some really innovative and dynamic things that are coming out of these startups and smaller composable systems that can deliver really best in class customer experiences for their customers and their clients. So I would expect to see more composability, more headless talk, more talking about the edge delivery services that are coming out of AEM, and how companies can continue to take in and out aspects of their smart tech solutions and put in Adobe solutions, maybe pull out some Adobe solutions, but how do they continue to create the best MarTech stack possible? And Adobe's going to continue to want to be part of that conversation. So they're going to have no choice but to continue to find composable, hybrid, headless solutions that are going to be able to answer that as the competition continues to creep up. And there's a lot of composable solutions that are knocking on Adobe's door left and right, as well as other monolith solutions that are out there too. So it's really going to be exciting to see what Adobe does in this specific space. Now, when we think about composable, one of the next words you hear that comes out of most people's mouths, they think about composable is composable commerce. And we've been hearing, where has Magento, Adobe Commerce, been in the whole commerce ecosystem? This was something that was picked up a few years ago, had a lot of a lot of work put into it, but it really seems to be on the kind of quiet side the last couple of years. So I have a prediction that this is the year that we're going to see Adobe Commerce get a lot of love. And I think you're going to see from an AI infusion, and I think you're going to see from a money investment. And the reason why I say that is the following: Shopify and others are really doing about this, generative AI product descriptions. They're finding ways to accelerate their stores for enterprises and upper mid market. And Adobe's been pretty quiet, but they need to have a commerce solution, and they have one. But why hasn't it actually been invested in more? I think they've made the decision. They're going in with this. They want to continue to make Adobe Commerce work, and they have some really big clients that are on it, and so they really kind of still need to continue to be part of that conversation when it comes to commerce in general. So I think we're going to see on a keynote session on day one, in the general session, you're going to hear something about Adobe Commerce. I would be shocked if we don't see something that says, hey, we're going to help you with write product descriptions with generative AI, be it a version of Sensei or some other aspect. I could think you can see an idea of having Adobe Firefly ingested into it, so you can have more dynamic image generation to take onto your product. So take a product and put it in different environments, so you can actually have that easier sell for a person who's looking for at the product in the store. So AI, I think, is going to be one of the big drivers of it, but I do think there's going to be a lot more investment from Adobe when it comes to the commerce solution. And I think, I'd be really surprised if we don't see something about commerce at general sessions on the first day. And I think I would expect it. I really hope we do see it. I think it's one of those products that needs to get a little love. And this is probably about the time that it would be delivered on. I would say the last thing that I'm going to say when it comes to what I'm looking forward to Adobe Summit is I'm looking for what's that next big announcement or acquisition or strategic partnership. And the reason why I say that is this: Figma fell apart. And in fact, not only did Figma fall apart, but Adobe said we're not really going to invest in XD anymore. Which is really interesting. But to the points I was mentioning earlier about the generative AI functionality, specifically around text generation, and when we think about personalization at scale, content creation, that's one of the big missing pieces. Microsoft is a big investment, and Adobe have a big partnership together. Microsoft has a big investment in partnership with OpenAI. I would also say there's a little bit of investment inside the Google platform, because I do believe at early stages, Google Bard was allowed to have image creation via Firefly, which was really shocking to kind of see in the last year. I would say, again, if I'm in the guy in the room listening to everybody else, because I don't have the inside track on what people are going to be talking about at Adobe Summit, even though the company I work for is a partner. I would say I would be really interested to see, or really shocked to not hear about an announcement of some strategic partnership with a LLM studio like OpenAI, maybe Anthropic. Um, Maybe Meta from an open source solution. Maybe they decide to grab something from that standpoint. But I would be really surprised that they don't address the AI in some way. And I don't know if they're going to build it. I don't know if they're going to say, "Hey, we'll take the same route with all the data we have from things that are being created in the cloud," and like they did with Firefly. But I think I'd be really surprised, and I have every expectation. I'll be disappointed if I don't hear an announcement about some integration, partnership, strategic partnership around text, generative AI around text specifically. And I think it's going to come from a partnership with either a big studio, big AI lab like Anthropic or OpenAI, maybe even something more niche like again, open source like with Llama from Meta is concerned. I think it'd be a big miss if we don't see that kind of announcement. If I think about what's the ecosystem that is the end-to-end creation, I don't know if they need to buy anything else really specifically. I mean, maybe a CRO solution, or maybe something else that continues to advance that agenda from an experience standpoint. But they have great partners that are already doing some of that type of stuff, and I don't think they need to buy another commerce solution to replace Magento or advance Adobe Commerce. I do think, though, they've been sitting quiet on the AI front, and if they're going to make an announcement, if they're going to make an acquisition, I'm not going to buy OpenAI, but I can see them making some strategic partnership announcement. It's going to be in the AI space, and I'm actually looking forward to see the mic drop that comes out with that, because I do think Adobe's sat in the last last year, they didn't jump on all their announcements out of the gate. They waited to Adobe Summit to talk about Firefly, which was the image generation, because Dolly had been out there making a lot of noise, and Mid-Journey, Stable Diffusion from the video and image creation standpoint. But be really surprised if we don't see an AI announcement in some way, shape, or form, be it strategic partnership or maybe buying a smaller lab that might be out there, because Adobe has a lot of customers where they can really take that. And maybe they announce their own. Maybe they announce that they've been working on their own large language model, because they have access to all the data that they need to train on the aspects they need from a text standpoint. But it's what's missing. If I can go into my email creation tool and get text, generative AI text creation for body content and headlines and subject lines and other content, this is the things we're missing right now. It's the things that we're missing from a content standpoint. If I'm thinking about what Salesforce is doing with their their GPT, Einstein GPT, but they're just kind of text to question to query interface back into their ecosystem. These are things that if I'm a consumer of Adobe's products, if I'm a marketer that has access to analytics and data and personalization, these are the things that I want to be able to do. I want to be able to type into an interface like a Copilot and deliver on that. And we know through Gen Studio that there's a version of a Copilot they're looking to implement with their content supply chain. So whether it be creating campaigns and executing that from that content standpoint. But if I'm another type of marketer, just kind of doing content creation and website development and mobile and all the different distribution points that fit inside there, I'm gonna need, where's my co-pilot in that? Where's my co-pilot in developing, discovering insights? Where's my co-pilot in discovering my new segment that I want to be able to create and then go execute against? This is where I'm expecting to see some of the biggest announcements and some of the biggest excitement around the first day of the talk about Adobe Summit. I would say it might be half baked. It might not quite all be there. It might be it's coming this fall, early alpha preview. But they have to announce something. They have to announce it, and they got to deliver on it. And it has to be delivered in 2024 because they're just losing ground otherwise. But we're going to spend 3 days in Vegas. Some of us will be there longer, depending if you're there for Partner Day. We are excited about all the things that we're doing at Adobe Summit through Bounteous. So my shameless plug as we think about what we're doing here from an Adobe perspective is, we're going to be there at Adobe Summit, really doing some fun things. We have several speaking sessions that are happening. So if you are going to Adobe Summit and you want to hear what we're doing, some great work with this small little company called Petco, and what they're doing to make the best kind of partner to you and your as a pet owner. Looking at how they're finding new segmentation, understanding their customers with looking at real-time CDP customer journeys, optimizing those and delivering on those promises. You can go see my colleague Jen Spofford and our client there, Rakesh and Angel, on Tuesday afternoon. So please go stop by that. If you are inclined to maybe get a refreshment and think about things that you're, possible, all the personalization and possibilities with our client Coca-Cola, Kevin Hogg, who's our VP of Customer Data Platforms, will be talking with our Coke clients and with Adobe on our work we've done with them in the commerce area. Come stop by our booth, grab a Coke. We might have a fun kind of door seat prize for you if you actually go to that session. Highly encourage you to continue to do that. Want to celebrate our Adobe Commerce Rockstar finalist with Shika, and really hoping that she can bring home the final. Yes, I'm a winner. From that standpoint, she's been doing some amazing work in our Adobe Commerce practice and how we're delivering that for our clients like Coca-Cola and others. We're going to be right there when you walk inside the Community Expo, booth 115. We walk in, just hang a right, see the big purple booth. It'll be great. We'll be right across from the theater. Right when you walk in, come talk to us about your digital challenges, how we can help you accelerate and understand the value that you can get out of your Adobe ecosystem as fast as possible. This, again, is my 10th Adobe Summit. Really excited about what we're doing. We want to talk to you about your real-time CDP, your customer journey analytics, and your AJO, Adobe Journey Optimization challenges. We got solutions for all this, all those challenges to help clients move and get there faster. But I really hope that we see you here at Adobe Summit. If you are there, please come by and say hi. I'm really excited to talk to anyone and everyone I possibly can when it comes to that event, and talk to you about your challenges. I see a comment that has come through. Yes, Courtney, come visit the booth. This is one of my colleagues. Come visit the booth at there. We are super looking forward to being there in Vegas. We have an army with us. It's gonna be fun. We got every expert for every part of the platform. Really hope you guys can come and join us at Adobe Summit. Until next time, and maybe I'll do a recap when we get back from Adobe Summit to see how many of my predictions came true. I really enjoy these quick lives that are out there. I hopefully can do more. We got a lot going on, but at the same time, these are always fun to do. So until next time, I will catch you on the flip side. Until then, stay healthy, have a great weekend, and I'll see you at Adobe Summit.